All right, and welcome back to the program. Like I promised, we now are joined by the Governor of Tharaka Nithi, Muthomi Njuki. Very good evening to you, Governor.
Good evening and welcome to Tharaka Nithi County.
Thank you so much. It's been raining quite heavily here. Is this what you've been experiencing while the rest have been praying for rain?
It's been very dry for the last several years.
Right.
So we welcome the rains. We are grateful that we can get this amount of rain, and even not just the amount, but even the fact that it rains every day is a blessing to all of us.
Indeed. I want us to begin from the latest report that we just aired right before we went on break. It was a report by Melita Oletenges. It touched on a number of issues that talked about the healthcare sector in your county. And one of the issues, but we're going to just have a general look at first of all, the healthcare sector in your county. There's this issue of the community healthcare program, the community healthcare volunteers program. It appears to be quite an integral part of your healthcare agenda. Why is it that?
Well, let me say that when you find yourself in a pit, you don't dig further, but you dig yourself out. And that is where we found ourselves in the last 6 years or so. When I came in 2017, the health sector in Tharaka Nithi was in dire need. We were ranked among the worst counties in terms of immunization in this country. Our health workers were perpetually on strike almost every other month, and that is definitely just because of teething problems in devolution. You know, the first term, when the health workers were coming from the national government to the county government, the expectations were very high. They also had unions that definitely were demanding and moving faster than the government themselves. But I'm glad to be serving in the second term when things are a bit settled down, and we had to dig ourselves out of the hole. And what we realized is that if we can be able to curb the diseases at the prevention level, then we will not incur the high cost that usually is incurred during the curative level, which is the treatment. Therefore, in collaboration with development partners, I remember in particular there was Red Cross, there was AMREF, we recruited 1,267 community health workers who were trained, they were kitted, and also given gadgets to report and attached to the nearest health facility. We have a total of 110 households in Tharaka Nithi, which are normally served by 127 units that are usually distributed all over the whole county. When I talk about unit, we are talking about 100 households being served by one community health worker.
Right.
What they do is every day they spend about 2 hours checking on the households in their health status, and teaching them on simple methods how to prevent diseases. And because of that, we have been able to see the index in healthcare in Tharaka Nithi going up. The queues in our health facilities are reduced significantly, and that is why we can see those indicators of the ranking that you're talking about. You can't believe it, in around 2016, 2017, only 47% of children below the age of 5 years are receiving immunization in the Tharaka Nithi County.
47% only.
Today we are only second to Vihiga County at 95%, and Vihiga is at 96%. So congrats to my friend Otichilo, but we are catching up. We are targeting 100% in the next 1 year.
You mentioned this, but indeed one of the biggest challenges that is facing a majority of the counties in this country is the issue of the payment for healthcare workers. In fact, just the other day, the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Union issued a statement, and in fact it was a notice to the government asking payment of healthcare workers' salaries by the 5th of every month. This is affecting counties significantly when it comes to healthcare. How have you then managed to deal with this situation and cater for the healthcare workers in your county under such prevailing circumstances?
Well, at that point, I would like first to start by thanking my health workers. Our health workers have been very considerate, very cooperative in terms of being patient in matters of providing their pay on time, not just the pay also, but what normally comes with the pay sometimes, like their statutory deductions like NHIF and all, because it is a known fact that in Kenya at the moment the cash flow to the counties is wanting. But definitely it is a matter of making your priorities right, because it is not really prudent for you to fix a development agenda when the health workers and the other workers are not being paid. So what is happening, that the fact that we have arrears of about 3 or 4 months, which are now since reduced to 2 up to last week, we had to mop up resources and ensure that we have austerity measures and reduce unnecessary expenditure to ensure that we form a buffer for about 2 or 3 months to be able to pay the salaries. We have also made arrangements with the bank, local banks, to be able to process our pay and pay our workers and wait for the national government to give us money. And it is usually at a very minimal cost, which is not borne by the government itself, but it is borne by the workers in terms of what they call a salary processing fee, which does not go beyond 150 shillings per salary, which is a question of the opportunity cost. It is cheaper for you to be charged 150 shillings to process your salary of 150,000 rather than go for 2 or 3 months without pay. And that is how we've been surviving. But that does not mean that we don't feel pinch, because when we mop up the resources, there are other departments that suffer because they wait. And departments include accumulated pending bills for our suppliers.
And in fact, I was actually coming back to that.
Yeah.
Just the other day, there was a full council meeting by the Council of Governors. Yeah. And what they did is they have asked the Treasury to release the money that is owed to them. Yeah. Or there's going to be a shutdown in counties. So just tell us, how bad is the situation and how has it affected your operations in this county?
Well, when I said we mopped up the resources, it means that we had to put on hold some of the expenditure that was competing with salaries and remunerations. Some of those expenditure includes payment of what is owed to suppliers.
Correct.
And it could be suppliers who are supplying essential services like drugs, for example, KEMSA. We owe them almost 100 million. You know, when you make an order for drugs and KEMSA tells you pay what you owed for last month, you know, it becomes very difficult, and many other suppliers. So we were saying we closed down because it reaches a point where even though you have workers, you've arranged how to be able to pay them, they need tools to work. You can't send doctors to the hospitals to go and serve patients if there are no drugs, if there are no reagents for testing, and so on and so forth. That is where we thought it's prudent, as much as government is, the national government has, is in a very tight corner as far as the resources are concerned because of the debt burden. We have also to put our priorities right, because the bulk of the workers in Kenya are not in the national government but in the counties, because the most of the functions that carry the most number of workers is in counties. Look, for example, at health. We are spending 36% of our resources as a government, despite having 14 devolved functions, on health. So when you don't give the counties their money, it means their workers have to suffer.
Let me ask you, what's your budget? What's your county budget to the health sector in this county?
36% of about 5.2 billion goes to the health sector.
Right.
And it's not only in paying workers, but also in terms of supporting infrastructure. That is in terms of health commodities, in terms of what other sectors normally support health, including public health, the immunization programs, and so many others, including the community health workers that you're talking about. We have, at the moment, decided to change the name to community health promoters.
And we actually call them community health warriors in our tag earlier.
Absolutely, it's more or less the same.
Okay.
Yes.
Just moving on a little bit away from that, I want us to talk about an issue that has captured actually the attention of the country. It is with regards to some protests that we have been witnessing in Chuka town. Now, there are two particular incidents. Today, in particular, 2 police officers were killed under unclear circumstances, with alleged reports that they were involved in some mischievous activity. The other one was a shooting of the county boda chairman. His name was Mugambi. Yes, that is Willis Mugambi. When you're talking about the security of this county, what is the issue?
Tharaka Nithi has been very peaceful. We are generally a very peaceful community. I know sometimes Merus are usually blamed for high tempers, but basically we have not been showing that. We are very calm people. And I would want to say that these two incidents we talk about are just isolated cases that happened because of spontaneous reactions to things. And it happens at a time when the economy is very bad. People have emotional issues in terms of idle youth. We also have delay in justice, because in this particular incidents that happened is because we had lost a young man. Actually, it happened in my village, and the killers who were purported to have been known had not been brought to book. And it is just a gap between the judiciary, the police, and the community. When you don't explain to the community the circumstances under which this is happening, and therefore the community was up in uproar. And I will not blame the community itself as per se, because every community, for them to go on rampage, sometimes they are usually mobilized. And
but you say it's isolated cases. Are you concerned with this happening within such a short timeline, so close to each other?
Well, I would say yes, it's a cause for worry. But as leaders, we must come together and talk to our people, basically. And we stop charging them all the time, because the solutions to problems is not charging the community. It is actually talking to them and cooling them down, so that we look for solutions to the problems.
All right.
I do not want to believe that our people have issues against the police, because it has been altercation with the police now on the two occasions. I want to believe they're isolated cases, because even our children, we have very many policemen from this county of Tharaka. They may not be serving here, they may be serving somewhere else in this country. And those are children of other parents from other parts of the country. And on my own behalf, on that of the people of Tharaka Nithi, it's a situation that we regret. And I also want to believe that there is no death caused by another human being that should go unpunished. It is a responsibility of the arms of government that deals with security to ensure that those who are committed this heinous act should be brought to book, because we cannot encourage that to be happening. Because you cannot say that you have mob justice against the police. You cannot have shooting against innocent civilians, because for whoever shot that young man, and the young man, I understand, was shot from the back in a demonstration. Demonstrations happen every day. Why use live bullets? Why don't you just use tear gas or rubber bullets as provided? So it is a circumstance that warrants people to be annoyed, because if a young boda chair who has just come to quell maandamano is shot just like that, then people have a reason to be annoyed. We are basically human beings.
All right. Yeah. And right before I ask you about, this is your second term. It is your last time indeed as governor. I want to know, what agenda you have for this county in this next, less than 5 years. So it's about 4 years now in a moment. But before that, nationally, there's still a lot also happening. As a political leader, I want to get your view on this. It appears the bipartisan talks that were ongoing have sort of stalled at this point. The opposition, which is the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition, have now called for mass protests, which we expect to happen on the 2nd of May, which is on Tuesday. We had some strong statements from you today as well on the same. Where do you think the problem is?
Well, I think the problem at the moment is not with the Kenyans per se, including those who are being called on the streets. That's not what the problem is. The problem is with political leaders who do not want to embrace change when it comes. Because there's no way as a country we can perpetually be in the field of politics We cannot politic 24/7, 365, just when we come from elections barely a year ago. And the issues that are being used at the moment to cause what is supposed to be mandamano, but in my view, it is basically mayhem in the street, is something that could have been resolved when we had the Supreme Court. Because at that particular time, those issues should have been raised.
But there are issues that are quite at the heart of the common Mwananchi, the issue of cost of living.
I understand that absolutely. But you never cannot satisfy or make the situation as it is in life perfect. Problems are there all the time. But you don't resolve them by castigating the leaders who are in the office at that particular moment in time. It is better to offer advice, because let's, for example, look at the cost of living. The cost of unga has been up there, 280, 200. Now it's below one. I mean, it's below 200. I mean, going for mandamano or inciting the public does definitely not bring the cost down. But I would wish that the people who are doing mandamano can be able to tell us what is that we need to do for us to bring that cost down, instead of just mandamano and say bring it down.
But do you agree that these talks should happen?
The talk should happen, but it should not happen on the streets. The way we were going in Parliament is the best way, because that is where we have the people's representation, as it were. And Kenyans are very hardworking. The route we were taking as Kenya Kwanza, and the president has made it very clear, by providing subsidy program like the one you've just showed done by my government, of giving satisfied seed, which I'm happy this time we have good rains. Definitely there will be bumper harvest in this county. And therefore, the shortfall that we had that has been making us import maize, we are going to have plenty of it. When it is available for millers, the cost will come down. Should we disrupt that with the mandamano so that the cost can come down? Definitely not. As for the issue of the demands for opening the servers, which really has been transacted, or rather so much has been talked about it. It is neither here nor there, because where to go for that is not on the streets or with the executive. It should be with the IEBC, it should be through the courts. If you look at the other issues that are demanding for including the release of funds for the counties, as governors, we have a way of negotiating for that with the government. Why do you want to go on the streets on our behalf, and you're not even part of Council of Governors? As we talk, the government has done absolutely well, because initially we were talking about 4 months delay in disbursement. Now we are talking about March and April. So that means
that's still a lot.
It's still a lot, but it's not as much as it were before, up to 4 months. So the government is doing something about it, and the way to go is not going on the street on our behalf. We have a way of having boardroom meetings, negotiating, talking about it, until we come to an amicable solution, a conclusion.
All right.
Yeah.
Look, you've done quite a lot in this county. And by the way, I'll tell you, I've covered your county twice. Yeah. And one of the most remarkable things I've seen when I covered here was a story that I've covered twice again. It was the issue of the fire and rescue department. You've put a lot of emphasis on that, but we're almost out of time, yeah? But so as a second-term governor, this is your last time in office.
Yeah.
What measures are you putting in place to ensure that there's continuity in the work that you're doing, and that the agenda that you foresee for the people of Tharaka Nithi is, not just leaving a legacy, but ensuring that that work will continue for years, even as you leave office?
Well, yes, as you rightfully put it, I'm doing my last term as a governor of Tharaka Nithi. But remember, I'm born and brought up here. I will be here even after my term. I'm staying here. And therefore, it is my duty and my responsibility to make sure that where we are taking Tharaka Nithi as leadership of Tharaka Nithi should be a place where we have the sustainability of what we've started. In the first 5 years, I invested so much as a government with my people in what we call structures, brick and mortar. And that means if it's hospitals, we increase our hospital coverage from about 85 to 115 by just making buildings. We also did markets, we did roads, we have done so much in agriculture in terms of building stores and grain storage. So these 5 years is to ensure that our people now can be able to experience the services that are supposed to be offered through that infrastructure we put in place. They want to feel, touch, and experience. And therefore, I will not be doing brick and mortar these 5 years. It is just to make sure that the services are offered in those infrastructure that will be put in place. If it's hospitals, I want to ensure that those hospitals have personnel that is qualified, so that we are able to decentralize services from the referral centers back to the dispensaries and the health centers, so that at least the community does not just see hospitals in terms of monumental buildings, but experience the service and feel the same. As to whether this will be continued after that, of course, the standards have been set. Those who are angling to become governor of this county, and I know most of them are people with capacity. Of course, when you live in an environment where the standards have already been set, you also angle to be able to make sure that when you get there, you better that record that has been left by the governor who lives. For me, I'm not only looking at leaving legacy, but to also ensure that Tharaka Nithi is in a place that we can be able to say, we came from far, we're here, and we're going far in terms of not just only health, but agriculture, and also water and other services.
Indeed. Yeah. And look, maybe it will be a little bit early to ask this question, right? Yeah. But yeah, 2 terms, you still have 4 more years to go to serve the people of this county. But after that ends, what do you have something in mind, politically speaking?
No, it's too early to think about that, definitely. I would want to say these 4 years and some months, I want to focus on serving the people of Tharaka Nithi. Well, I am still young. It is only my ID that is old. As for me, if you look at me, I'm still young. So we'll go now at the ID and stick to what you can see. I'm going to be around, and definitely there are places I can be able to serve in Kenya and this community. If I'm not around here, definitely at the national level, in the platform, I'm sure it is a place where my services may also be required, as per se, because I've had an opportunity to serve there. Currently, I'm serving as the chair of health committee in the COG, and we are having very good working relationship with all the governors. And therefore, should my services be needed up there or down here, I'll be ready for it. Indeed. Because at the end of the day, what matters is what you can be able to offer to the people, not what you can be able to offer yourself, because we are here to serve, not to be served.
Indeed. Yeah. And lastly, Governor, today, this evening, hundreds of thousands of residents of Tharaka Nithi are certainly probably watching you right now. What message do you have for them? Well,
my great people of Tharaka Nithi, first and foremost, I hold them in very high regard. The 2 terms that I've had, or 2 terms I've gone through elections with people of Tharaka Nithi, they have shown me overwhelming love, because Tharaka Nithi is like a tripod stand, where we are constituted of 3 constituencies in Tharaka Nithi. And in both elections, they gave me votes that made me win in all the constituencies. And therefore, I don't have a favorite of all. They are all my people, and I serve them with equal capacity. I'm indebted to them. And now that I'm serving the last 4 years, I would like to tell the people of Tharaka Nithi, do not be swayed by the people who are politicking, because politics have started a little bit early in Tharaka Nithi, where people are angling for governor, others are positioning themselves as deputy governors, others are positioning themselves. But you know, every time when you have a transition government, it is now evident Muthomi Njuki is leaving. And therefore, people have started angling very early. I would like to tell our people to leave me out of those politics, including the politicians. Leave me out of those politics.
You want to
give me an opportunity for me to work for the people of Tharaka Nithi for the 4 years, because I'm indebted to them for what they did for me.
All right.
I went through an election under very difficult circumstances when, you know, in what kind of positions we are, be in Mount Kenya region.
All right.
And for them to have said 5 years again for Muthomi Njuki, I don't take it for granted, because they were really good to us, and I have no reason not to pay them the debt by making sure that I work for them in a way that they'll know that there was a one time a man here who worked for, he gave out his best. So let them give me a collaboration and cooperation for me to work for them for the first 4 years, because whether I am pushed not to work or not, I have 4 years salary from them And therefore, they must ensure that I account for that salary by working for them.
All right.
I am asking them to protect me from the politicians who are trying to involve me in their politics, even as much as I protect myself. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Governor Onesmus Muthomi Njuki, Governor of County number 13, Tharaka Nithi. It was indeed a great pleasure to be here and you hosting us for the Stronghold edition once again. But we're going to take a short break as we wind up with this conversation with the Governor, but we still have much more lined up for you. So stay with us. We're going to be back in a short while.
Thank you.